Database Management System 1. Today I am going to make the introduction of Database Management System. I am Rohan Samarasinghe from Department of ICT. Today I will follow this one, the first week of introduction. The second week I am going to explain historical perspectives of the database management system, databases. And third week is the conceptual design and relationships. Fifth week I will discuss logical database design and relational module. And sixth week how to create the tables. And seventh and eighth week I am going to discuss the structured query language part 1 and part 2. After completion of the 8th week, you will have a mid-semester exam. That is a MCQ exam, online MCQ exam. You will be given 40 or 50 questions. Within 1 hour, you will have to answer those MCQ questions. The 30% from the mid-semester mark will be added for the final mark. So the mid-semester exam is very, very important. Those who are planning to get the A or B passes, definitely you will have to have a good score for the mid-semester exam. Then week 10, fundamental dependencies and normalization, how to normalize the database. The normalization I will discuss 10th and 11th week. And 12th and 13th week I will discuss the relational algebra, part 1 and part 2. Then final week I will discuss tool for database design and new types of database modules. So most of you are familiar with the SQL, but nowadays not for the SQL. There are some other types, SQL, MySQL and MongoDB, then SQLite, and some of those database management systems provide the facility to store the unstructured data. So basically you may have some confusion what is the unstructured and what is the structured data. I will explain later in this lecture. So the learning objectives also I explained earlier with the course module. After completion of this module, you will be able to understand the importance of the databases, because very, very important. You can't develop any algorithm without databases. Most of the commercially used algorithms and the software solutions use databases to store the data, retrieve the data, and to manipulate the data in the database. So that you will have to have a good understanding of these database management system and explain the fundamental concept as I explained you before. Understand the architecture of the database and context phases and techniques for designing and building a database. Then you have to learn the data models and ER diagrams. Also demonstrate an understanding of relational models and identify the anomalies in logical schema. So we can remove these anomalies by normalization process, so that you have to understand the normalization process. When you apply this normalization process, that means you are going to remove all the anomalies and refine the data tables. Then gradually you have to understand the structured query language, SQL language, clauses and functions, then how to write it, and develop a database solution in the solution model, a real world scenario, and understand the relational algebra. Finally, understand the new types of data models which I explained earlier. Some of those data models will be used to store the unstructured data data, and some of tables are used to store the structured data. These are the reference books. I will upload all the copies of this book: Physical Database Design, SQL Function, Beginning Database Design, and assessment criteria. Actually, this time I am going to give for the assessment, continuous assessment. I will give you some tutorials. When you submit those tutorials in time, you can get the maximum of 10 marks for final marks. And mid-semester exam, after the 8th week, you will have a mid-semester exam. From that exam, you can get the 20 marks. And after completion of the module, at the end of the module, once again, you will have an final exam. Then you can get the 70 marks. Examination will be comprehensive exam based on the lecture materials, assignment covered during the semester. So very, very important to understand the concept of the database management system. And today simply the outline of the today's lecture is, you have to understand first what is the data. Without understanding data, useless of studying the bases and database management system. What are the database management systems? So you have to understand what data, types of the data, and why information storage the need of the databases, and what is the database and database management system, characteristics of the database management systems, about the database management administrator, as well as database design process. Today I am going to complete these subtopics in the first lecture. So what is a database? Actually, this is an interactive session, interactive class, as well as I am going to apply the blended learning characteristics with this lecture. The blended learning characteristics, that means you have to also interact with the lecture in different ways. You can answer the questions, or else you can share the window and explain what you understood to the other students. Likewise, we are going to provide you the classroom environment during my lecture series. So I am going to implement the blended learning. I think you have heard this word, the blended learning features and characteristics during this lecture. So it will help the students to understand more about the lecture, as well as they will find new things and explain to the others, and also they can interact with the lecturer and other students. So anyway, I will give some topics today, then you have to find from internet or by referring books, and I will allocate a time to explain what you have found previously to the class. Okay, then what is data? Actually, you have heard this word frequently, data. And what is data? If someone can answer, I am very happy. If you make a mistake, don't worry, because all you are students. If you make a mistake, that means you will reach to find the new correct answer. So data is a collection of raw facts. Raw facts in the sense you can find different raw facts from which conclusion may be drawn. That means from these raw facts you can make a conclusion not as it is, but you have to do something for these raw facts. What are these raw facts? Sometimes data is converted into the more convenient form of, normally we call the digital data, with the development of the ICT technology as well as different devices to capture the images and input devices of the data. Then you can see that the size of the data bases are getting larger. So the factors for the digital growth are increase in data processing capabilities. I don't know whether you have heard these words, because these are some famous topics and emerging topics in the computer science: data analytics, data science, big data analytics. Likewise, those topics are very, very important these days, because with the when you consider the size of the data and also the type of the data, we can categorize as the big data. Increase in the data processing capabilities as well as low cost of the digital storage, and also affordable and fast communication technology, ICT technology, and proliferation of application and smart devices pave the way to increase the size of the data. You know that when you visit a certain place, you are going to get the image, you are going to take the image, and sometimes you get the selfie and upload to the YouTube. Why? Because proliferation of application and smart devices. The smart devices provide the facility to easily take the photo and upload to the web or else social media. So affordable and faster communication technology. Then when you now it has become the gigabit speed with the low cost. So when you want to communicate someone else or your friend who is living in Europe, and you can communicate with him within a few seconds time, sometimes few seconds time. And you know that even in the Zoom technology, what we are doing now, you can hear this my lecture without any delay, because of this affordable and faster communication technology, increase in the data processing capabilities. You know that the specification of the computers are getting higher. Now we are using the i7 processor, and also we use SSD hard disk to store the data, and all the today computers has more than 8 GB RAM. So increase the data process, machine specification directly related to the increase the data processing capabilities. So these are the factors that influence for increase in the size of the data. So here you can see the movie or photo or book or letter. All these things must be converted to the binary before storing in the databases or the databases. So digital movies, photos, ebooks, and emails, all those are converted to the digital data, that is zeros and ones, and saved in the databases. Then when we specially speak the type of the data, there are two types of the data. The data can be classified as structured and unstructured. When you consider this, the majority of this data is unstructured data. You can see the email attachment, PDF, documents, X-rays, manuals, images, forms, contact numbers, then instant messages, SMS, and also documents, web pages, and rich media, and different audio, video, phone calls also. Those are categorized as unstructured data type. So, more than 90% of the data from the world is unstructured. So, we can get the less than 10% of the data as structured data. So, structured data is very clear, and those data has a data type and the length of the data, and also we can easily store in relational tables. But unstructured data you can't find anything. So, but we have to have a certain method to extract the data from the unstructured data set and apply those extracted data to for the decision making purposes. So normally this unstructured data has no any data type, so we have to use the ETL process for processing the data. ETL process means extract the data to the given data type and transform it and learn from the database. So that the data science and the big data use this ETL process because they are handling the unstructured data. So why information storage need? Information is the knowledge derived from data. So data itself has no meaning, but when you process the data and you can convert to the information, using that information you can make decisions and you can do any decisions as well as get some actions likewise. So the process information, the information is the knowledge derived from the data, and process information is called process data is called the information. Data can be sometimes the numbers or the letters, alphabetic letters, or numeric values, or else sometime the feelings, that is cold and warm likewise, and also the combination of digits and the letters, that is called the alphanumeric. Different data types can be found. We live in on demand and on command world. What is that? With this pandemic situation, you know that all our day-to-day activities will be done using the internet. We need not to go to the bank to remit the money to someone else's account, to pay the utility bills, and also to get the current balance of our account and remit the money to someone else's account, transfer the money to someone else's account. We need not to go to the banks. So online bank provides the online facility to the customers to do some transaction in their accounts. So on command and on demand world. So we live in on command and on demand world. Not only that, consider that you don't want to go to supermarket. You can order the items through the internet and pay for the goods using the credit card, online payment, and the items will be delivered to the home by the Keels or Food City or any other supermarket. So business seeks to store, protect, optimize, and leverage the information. What business seek? store the data, protect the data. That means no one can use this data except the authorized person, and optimize. When you process the data, you will be able to optimize and get the right image from those data, and leverage the information to begin to gain the competitive advantage. Why the business seek those things? Because the business also in a very competitive environment, so they are handling the information. Though most of the companies are based on the information, so to drive a new business opportunity, to find the new business opportunity also, they want this information. I will give you simple example to understand how important is data. So when I was studying in the foreign country, actually Japan, there was a supermarket chain called the 7-Eleven. That means open to the 7 in the morning and close to the 11 at evening. So that is called the 7-Eleven. They analyze, they have the something like the convenient store. It has food items as well as lunch, breakfast, and some daily needs. Everything is there, something like a grocery plus supermarket. So they analyze the daily sales of each and every item, and with the time, so they use some advanced data analytic techniques to analyze the items that is moving. For an example, sandwich. When you consider the sandwich, from 7 to 10 time, the sandwiches will be sold out, because the morning, actually most of the time the people get this sandwich as the breakfast. So they can decide whether they want to increase the number of sandwich put into the racks, or else if they have some if no one is going to buy, they can reduce the number of sandwich that they are going to put to the racks. Likewise, that is simple example, but the information is very important for the survival of the business. And how do you produce this information? And also the protection is very important. The companies do not like to give their information to the others company, because they are both those companies are in the same competitive environment. And how do you produce this information? Here you can see, you can get as the telephone bill, the mobile phone bill that you use, the number of minutes with the initial one, and those information will be saved in the database, and at the end of the month the company will generate the report of using the telephone, mobile phone. And Facebook, how many of you don't have a Facebook account? I think all of you and all the teenagers has the Facebook account. Normally when you create an account in the Facebook, you will have to give all the basic information: name, first name, last name, your email, a new password, date of birth, whether you are a male or a female. Everything must be given to register in the system and create an account in the Facebook. Then after creating that Facebook, you can easily do some auctions activities. For an example, if you want to buy a certain product from the net, you can easily use this to get that. And Facebook also has Facebook stores. Some of them are going to do some businesses from the Facebook, and also there are some auction websites also. So all of these websites as well as the social media network produce the information and the data. Consider you want to channel a doctor, but you are in not in Colombo and you are in Hambantota or Matarle. See, and before introducing this system, those who want to channel a doctor in Colombo, they have to come all the way from Hambantota or Monaragala early in the morning or one day before and get an appointment and wait until the doctor comes. But with the introduction of this e-channeling system, you need not to come. You can book, you can get an appointment from a doctor wherever you are. If you have the internet facility and a device, you can get an appointment, and the nursing home or the private hospital will inform you that the time you will have to be at the hospital and 5 or 10 minutes before. Sometimes you will be given a certain time, 3:30, 5 or 4:30 likewise. So you need not to come to the place prior to consult a doctor and wait until your turn is come, but you can come 10 minutes before the given scheduled time and consult a doctor, see the doctor. So how easy by introducing these things for that system also. Back end, the front end is there, the back end, this is the front end. The back end system has the database as well as when you write the name and the hospital as well as specialty of the doctors. You can get all the doctors in that field and you can select the preferred doctor for you to consult. Then what is a database and database management system? These two keywords must be understood very clearly. Database is a collection of related data. Database is a collection of related data. We'll get some example. The student database in the university. In our university also, I am going to develop this DBMS system and SIS system, student information system, and earlier we developed resource allocation system as a mini project, and now I am going to install that student information system to the faculty to use. And student database is a collection of related data. For an example, student database may have different tables, the student table and also faculty or the university table likewise, each of which may have a certain relationship. When you get the table, you can see these attributes are there: student first name, the last name, date of birth, and also date of birth and school attend. If he is a university, what is the year, whether it is first year or second year. Also, you have to enter other informations related to the student. When you consider customer also the same. So you have to understand this very clearly. Database is a relation of related data. But what is DBMS, database management system? Database management system actually set of programs to access the data. Set of program to access the data is a software package designed to create and maintain the database. Then database management system is a software package that also include the database to manage the database, data in the database, sometimes filter and get. For an example, if you want to get the report or the get the addresses of the student who are in the second year doing ICT. In such case, you can filter according to your requirement and get it. So that is done by the database management system. That is a set of programs to access the data. Here, simply DBMS can be given as this. So this is the application actually, the database. Database consists of a set of tables, student data, class data, faculty. Likewise, there are some tables related to each other. So DBMS is the software package to access the database and provide the generate the report and do the required things. So DBMS, student scheduling, faculty scheduling, payroll for the administrators. Likewise, you can have some applications. So this can be used by the computer. That's using this DBMS system, and you can access and you can get the work done to satisfy your requirement. So the student scheduling system application, you can find the individual student scheduling and group scheduling year wise. Likewise, different thing can be get, and also class list and faculty scheduling, final faculty schedules, lecture hall schedules, lecture schedules. Likewise, everything can be done. So database system, and you have to understand the difference between the databases and database management system. Database management system, as I explained before, is a set of programs to access the data. Database is a collection of related tables. When you consider the characteristics, what are the characteristics of the modern database management systems? And we can share the information, sharing the data, and redundancy control. Redundant data means the same data can be appeared in several tables. So for a well-defined database, you can't find such things, the repetitive data. So redundancy control, you have to control the redundancy. Security control, no one can access the data except the defined people. For an example, if I want to access, consider the banking system, you know that the counters, you can find several bank assistants are working in the counters, then behind someone, the officer is there, then from the and also the second officer and the manager has some privileges to see the accounts of all that department, but and also sometimes they edit the data, but the bank assistant who is working in the counter may not have that facility. So that called security control, to avoid some protect the data. It will define the different security levels. Persistent storage. So persistent storage is right data must store in the right place, and it must have a persistency. For an example, if a certain student is registered in a different address, but after 1 year's time they shifted to the different place. So what happened if the previous address is there as it is? His important documents also will be sent to the old place, but no one is there. So when you change your information, you have to definitely update and keep the persistence of the data. and database inference we'll discuss later, and multiple user interfaces. User interface is also very very important. So each and every user may have a different interface. For an example, administrator has a certain interface having the required things, but the user, end user, need not to have the administrative privilege. He must have the user privilege. Sometimes they are not allowed to change the data. Then multiple user interfaces and represent complex relationships. The database, you can understand the theory. When you understand the theory, you can see that some complex relationships can be maintained using the stored procedures and functions. And integrity enforcement, that is, if you are given a certain username and the password to enter to the database and see a certain level, no one can enter from your account and see. If someone can enter from your account and see, what would happen? So there is no integrity. Same as the mailbox. If you have the email address, you have the username and password. You are not going to provide it, give it to your friends or some other else, because it may have some confidential information sometimes, or else important information, and the integrity of the data is very very important. Backup and recovery. The databases must back up after a certain time. When you consider the banks and the financial institute, they are highly critical. If the database fails, they will lose the huge amount of money, millions of money, so that they are going to have a real-time backup. When the transaction is complete, the same time the different database in a different place is also update, that is real-time update to keep as a disaster recovery process. Standard enforcements, each and every data must have a standard. Even in the unstructured data, there may have a certain set of rules to that, and flexibility can add the data, can remove the data only for the authorized. And also in a database management system, when you delete the data, it will not completely delete from the database. It will deactivate and write in a different one, and whenever it is needed, it can be retrieved from those backups. And so availability of the data. Availability is, whenever it is needed, it can be easily retrieved the data. And also economics of scale. Economics of scales means the database, actually the fields as well as the data types must be designed to satisfy to store the data in the required data, as well as you have to use the not some advanced things with spending the huge money. You have to use the practical solutions for creating the database management systems. Economics of sales, actually one method is there. They consider that you have only a small server, but you have to develop the database to store in your server. But if you don't have a high-end servers, but you are going to design the database to store the data in high-end servers, so you will have to have an extra burden. So you have to adapt to the environment. Self-describing, that means the catalogs of the metadata. Metadata is the what we call the metadata is the data outline of the data, sometimes you can say the summary of the data also must be there as in a catalog. Program data independence, that means the database is there, the software solution is there, you can connect those database and the software solutions in order to generate the report, and DBMS and the database are completely different. The DBMS use the database to retrieve the data, to generate the reports and other things. And so that's why for the security purpose also, the application server and the database server is not in the same machine. Application server will install in the application and database is in a different machine. So the hackers and crackers hack the system, but they cannot hack the database because that is in a separate server having high security. That means not the physical security, but you can apply some software security methods to protect the data. So then from the data you can get the multiple views, not only one. You can generate different types of reports to satisfy your requirement. And concurrency distributed and online also. Concurrency control, very, very important. When the database is when the data is updated, you will have to update all the databases. Otherwise, there may have the inconsistency of the data, heterogeneous hardware and the software, so that the servers, when you consider the hardware, you sometimes the different types of hardware. Server has a certain hardware, application server may have a certain hardware, but there is no any problem with the hardware heterogeneity, and also the software. Sometimes the software package will be developed using web-based system, or else Java, or else PHP, MySQL, or C#. But the database must support for this the software. And when you consider the characteristics of the modern database management systems, system requirements of high availability, high reliability, throughput, response time, and the lifetime security. I explained this. High availability means whenever you want, wherever you are, you can easily access the database using the database. And reliability means you have to have a high reliable, that no one can change the data, no one can into the database, and the reliability will come with the security and other matters. And throughput also the same. The response time, when you make a request, you must get the response in the least time. What happens if you make a request and you have to wait 10 minutes? You are fed up in such case. So that because this will actually, throughput and the response time will highly depend on the network bandwidth, as well as the type of the network, whether it is broadband or optic fiber or likewise. And varied content, numbers, strings, multimedia, GIS, and other things can be installed in a database. Some of them are unstructured, but you have to provide the facility to store those data. Very large database, DNA sequences, GIS data, Internet of Things, Google and Twitter. When you consider those things, they have very large databases, data centers, actually something like the data farms. So consider the Facebook. How many servers they need to store all the images and the other things of the users of the Facebook? What do you think? How many servers do they need? You can't imagine, but those are data farms actually. Then another one important topic is, who is a database administrator? Administrator is there. Who is a database administrator? Database administrator DBA is an IT professionals who oversee, design, manage resources and other users for the other users and authorization security control. He has to design, oversee the databases, design, manage the resources, and also provide the privileges to the users, use the security control. Everything must be done. So when you want to do the DBA, actually you, because DBA database administrator has a good prospects. You can start the salary more than 150 or 200 rupees, and gradually you will have to qualify because there are some certification exams. I will explain later. And Oracle certification also very important. Then all those certifications you will have to get. If you get those certifications, definitely you will become a good database administrator. The software used to manage database is properly maintained. His responsibilities, and allow rapid access when needed. He has to allow the rapid access because the content access, search, traffics are likely to have a damaging effect on any company database. The DBA works to maintain the efficiency of the server, so that time to time he has to check the efficiency and whether the storage enough to store the data, or if it is not enough, he has to add some additional storage, and everything must be done from him. He or she also will typically work to ensure data security, as this is big. You know that the security has spoken in different places because very important. Coordinating with the IT security professionals or the team in the large companies to help maintain the integrity of the sensitive business data. Normally, the multinational or the large and medium scale companies, they have business continuity plan. Business continuity plan actually is very important document. Most of the companies are revising that business continuity plan once in a 6 month. In that plan, everything is explained: how to protect the databases, how to protect the software systems, how to protect the servers. And the database administrator also refer the guidelines given by the business continuity plan and disaster recovery plan, and apply in the databases also. So what are the qualifications? If you want to be the database administrator, what are the qualifications normally you have? Definitely you will have a bachelor's degree in computer science, an associate degree in a database administration or similar degree. Many companies will also require the DBA candidate to have the background in IT work on database administrator teams. And while you are working as a database administrator, trainee database administrator, you better to get the certification exam related to the databases. There are some certification exam provided by different companies. Basically, the Oracle provide some certification exams, so you have to take that one and practice the environment given by them, and you can get the certification exams. The database administrator's main task also I explained earlier: the implement, configure and troubleshoot the database instance, replication, backup, partition, storage and access. Actually nowadays most of the multinational companies get the use the automatic backup system. Database administrator need not to manually get the backup. it has a different system with the robo arm, and they can define the time that want to get the backup in that time, using a certain robo arm, get the tape and fix it to the backup device and stop the system and get the backup and once again open for the others, and the tape also will be stored in a rack. Likewise, the backup process also can be automated, but the database administrator's responsibility to define the time that they want, that the backup wanted to get. So set user privileges within the database environment. If you want to have an account, first of all you have to tell the database administrator. He will create an account for you and send the username and the password, and you can change the password, and according to the user type you will be given certain privileges. The monitor and optimize the system performance using the index tunneling, disk optimization and other methods, so then he can easily do some monitoring as well as optimize the system performances. Sometimes if you take some time to access the database or prepare the report, sometimes you are fed up, so that he must optimize the database as well as install, reconfigure and troubleshoot and maintain the database system. Here are some places the databases are heavily used. The banks. For an example, you have an account, savings account in Mathura. But when you come to the Colombo, you can easily withdraw the money from your bank. If you have an account in the Bank of Ceylon, you can go to the Bank of Ceylon or any other ATM, and if you get any other ATM not in the BOC ATM, it will charge us 50 rupees and you can retrieve the money. So why? Those databases are integrated, linked together, and the banks are heavily use the database management systems. They use some highly advanced database system, like not in the SQL or MySQL. They use the commercial database systems, Oracle, like that. Airlines also, airline reservation system especially use the real-time databases. For an example, the airlines has some agents in different countries. When a certain agent book the airline a seat, others will see that seat has already booked. So that real-time databases are used. Universities, even the universities registration and as well as the result publication and sales, the customers, products and purchases, and manufacturing field, you can find the production, inventory, orders, supply chain. Likewise, human resource management also, you can have the HRM systems, employee records, payrolls, and everything is used. The databases are used everywhere. So then databases touch all the aspects of our lives. So why we want to study the databases? There are several reasons. One is very widely used. If you want to develop a certain software solution, definitely you will have to use the databases. In such case, you have to understand the fundamentals of the database and also advanced things for the databases to connect the software solution with the database. And part of many software solutions are the database, as I explained before. The DB expertise is sometimes you want to practice as a database administrator or the database expertise, and you can earn more money. As I told you, you can get a higher salary than the others if you join as a database administrator. Then, how do we design a database application? There are 5 steps to understand. One is the design such a way that record can be reached easily. Why? How we design the database for the application is we can easily at the record we can easily reach to the record. Records can be easily reached easily, or response to the user's questions easily. When the end user make a certain request, the response must be come with the least time, occupies minimum storage. Also, if you are an expert database administrator or the database designer, you will have to think how to occupy the minimum storage and contains no unnecessary data. So the repetitive data cannot be found in the table, so that you have to, when one data can be seen only one table, no in the multiple table, storing the gross salary calculated from the gross salary. So another one is updating of the data can be done easily without causing the mistakes. Adding as well as updating of the data can be easily done. So, having those things in our mind, we can use this process to design a database. One is the requirement analysis. So you have to discuss, if someone gives you to design a database, first of all you have to analyze the requirement. What are their requirement? Okay. Then what does the user want? The user's need and wants. Next one, having got this user's requirement, you can make a conceptual design that define the entities and attributes, and relationships between them, and also normally called the ER model. Make a conceptual design. Then third step is using this conceptual design, logical database design, then map the ER entity relations to the relational schema. Fourth step is schema refinement. When you design this logical database design, sometimes you will find some redundancy of the data. So you have removed all the redundant data, and one data can be seen only one time. So the schema refinement, normally called the fine tune. Finally, the physical database design, the implementation of the design using the database management system, and finally you can set the security design and implement and control to ensure the security and integrity. Then the databases can be used only the authorized person with high integrity. No one can use others. No one can enter the database without having the account. So these are the steps that you have to understand, and we have to, during this course module, we have to discuss these topics in detail: how to analyze the requirements, and conceptual database design, logical database design, schema refinement, physical database design, and security design. Then let's see what is this user requirement analysis. The first, if someone wants to define a software solution, so normally that solution comes with a database. So first of all, when you ask the requirement, you will be able to get his real idea, what he wants from the database for the software solution. The requirement analysis is the process of determining what the database is to be used for. So first of all, you have to ask, so what the database is going to be, normally you can ask, so from this software solution, what you are expect to get from this system. In that case, he will explain, I want to generate the report, I want to store the data, likewise he will explain, he or she will explain. And it involves interviews with the user. You can interview the user, the user group and other stakeholders, and also the users, to identify what functionality they require. And you can get the what fun. They are not going to explain we want this function or we want this function, but they, in the general words, they explain we want to generate this report, we want to see whether who are the outstanding customers. Likewise, if it is a customer database, yeah, likewise they can explain. So then they require from the database and what kind of data they wish to process and most frequently perform operations. So then you will be able to decide what type of data, what kind of a data must be stored in the database. And having those information, the user requirement, and analyzing the user requirement, just you can have an idea about the databases and the tables in the database. So the user requirement analysis, what user want from the database, as well as what is going to be stored in the database, what application are going to be built on top of the database, and what are the most frequently asked queries, and you have to decide that. So having analyzed the user's requirement, and you can have an idea about the database and the tables of the database. And for an example, let's say, what does the user want? For an example, user want to make a cupboard to be used for mom, dad, son and daughter, for the family. But requirement is to store the dad's shirts, pants and shoes, mom's saris, then other blouses and other things. And then having those idea, then he can make a conceptual design, model requirement diagram. Dad want to store the pants, shirts and shoes, as well as mom wants to store the saris and blouses, skirts and others. Likewise, you can make a sketch. Then having this sketch, you can make a user can use the conceptual design and convert it into the schema for the particular model. Then having this one, you can make the logical design. This is the dad section, the shirts and shorts, the pants and the shoes, as well as the mom's section, saris, then shoes. Likewise, you can make a conceptual design to satisfy their requirement. And then after conceptual design, then enhance the design to improve the performances. So if you want more space of these places, or else you want to less space of these places, and you want some sliding racks for this, likewise you can enhance the design and improve the performances. And if you can put some hangers, the bar to hang the saris or the shirts, likewise. And also this can be conceptual design. You can make a logical design, and the next step is refinement, and you can make some adjustments to satisfy. You can show it to the if it is, this is like the cupboard, and you can show it to the once again to the user and get some idea, or else you can remove something and customize according to their requirement. That is called the normalization, and then physical design. And when you get the library database, the second example, the requirements are record all the books, magazines, periodicals in the library database, and members of the library, sometimes students as well as the university staff, academic or non-academic staff. And that system must have the facility to add new members, remove the members after the graduation and from the database, and record the borrowing books. When a student borrow a book, that must record in the database. And some application on top of the database can be renewal services, maybe online, sometimes borrowing lending services, and resource reservation systems, that also sometimes online, and resource request services. Resource, you know that when you consider the library, the renewal services, you want to renew the book, you can make a request online. Then according to your student ID, the librarian can see the books and the expiry date, and if you want to extend those days, then he can easily do that one. Borrowing and lending services, if you want to borrow the books and the lending the books from the library, then it will mark using, actually these days there are some sophisticated method using the barcodes and the other things. No need to enter the book information of the books, just you use the barcode reader or the RFID reader. All the information of the book is loaded to the student or the borrower's account. Resource reservation system, sometimes the library provide different resources, space for the discussion, or else conference rooms. You can make a reservation for online, or else request the services. There are some services also you can make a request online. And third one is, think about the social networking site of the Facebook. What is going to be stored in the database? And you can store your personal information. When you want to create the account, you will have to give all the information, your first name, last name, date of birth, address, telephone numbers, everything. Those are personal information also stored. Then when you upload the images and also when you write some messages, all those must be stored in a database. So what is going to be stored in the database? What applications are going to be built on top of the database, and what are the most frequently asked questions? Then conceptual design. Conceptual design is, the purpose of the conceptual design phase is to build a conceptual model based on the previously identified requirement. So you know that I explained several examples, and after getting the requirement from the users, you can make a certain conceptual design to satisfy the required, but closer to the final physical model. The commonly used conceptual model is called the entity relationship model. If it is a database system, we can use the ER, entity relation model. The information gathered into the requirement analysis phase is used to create this high-level description of the data in a conceptual data model or semantic data model. Normally we call the ER model. Then the database schema. What is this schema? The schema is the skeleton structure that represent the logical view of the entire database. The skeleton or the structure that represent the logical view of the entire database. It's defined how the data is organized and how the relations among them and them are associated, and it formulates all the constraints that are to be applied on the data. So database schema we will explain in detail in the rest of the classes. This is the actually outline, and you will be able to understand what is the schema. Now right now you better to understand schema is the skeleton structure that represent the logical view of the entire database. Then logical database design. In these steps we determine DBMS to implement the database and also the data model. We utilize the conceptual schema created in the previous step and convert into the schema to a particular data model that is called the relational data model. And then schema refinement. When you define a schema but you don't know whether this is the optimal solution for this requirement. Sometimes you can find some redundant fields or redundant attributes. So you have to remove all these redundant and further refine. So schema created by the logical database design phase is further refined for potential problems such as redundancy. So you have to remove the redundancy of the data using this schema refinement. Normally we use the normalization. Normalization also first normal form, second normal form, third normal form, and Boy's code normal form. There are 4 normal forms normalization we have to apply to refine the database. And after that the database can be defined physically. So after this step, after the database refine step, the database is very clear and we can see only one data at once in the data table. So we can now the facility to design the database physically. So in this step, physical configuration of the database on storage media happens and performance criteria are taken into the consideration for future enhancement to the schema, and creation of indexes are considered. So when we design the database, we have to design and we have to think of the future. If we want to add some fields for the database, how can we add? Likewise, because when the system is being developed, sometimes you may want to apply store a new data in a table. In such case, without harming to the other tables, you have to have a knowledge to add those fields to the databases also. So then finally you are going to set the security. Different user groups are and their roles are identified, so that you know that customer and the end user and also the privileges must be given in different level. Otherwise, if all are given the high privileges, the database will be damaged. Then if someone change the data, it's very difficult to identify who has changed the data. So that if you get the bank database, you can get these things, the privileges. Customer can only read and access. The teller, the assistant who is in the counter can read and update in a limited facility. The manager has also can read and update in his area, in his region only. But when you can the database administrator, he has the full privilege to do. So set the privileges to the database in order to protect the database for the vulnerable users. So these are the steps in brief from this from next class.